In 10 minutes for My Amazon Guys PPC advertising only Tuesday podcast live Q&A with me, My Amazon Guys Director of Advertising, Matt Davis. Stay tuned. We'll be going live with the My Amazon Guy advertising only PPC podcast live Q&A in 5 minutes. $60 baby! 1 minute until we go live with My Amazon Guys advertising only focused live Q&A with me, Matt Davis, Director of Advertising for My Amazon Guy. It's going to be great. Stick around. Can you hear me? Test, test. I think that's got it. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. All right. Thank you all for joining me. Some technical difficulties here. Tried to upgrade my game here with a mic, and I guess I just haven't quite gotten the figure of it yet, but next week, stay tuned. I'm Matt Davis, the Director of Advertising here at My Amazon Guy. Welcome to the live Q&A session, PPC only focused podcast. As I was saying, apparently no one could hear me, but as I was saying, no special guest this week. Everybody had prior engagements. I know we got some good feedback from Orkin and Enrique and some of our other guests, Noor. Thank you all who attended. Next week, we'll sure have an extra guest. So just me this week. Hope that doesn't disappoint too many of you. This is the My Amazon Guy Live Q&A. On Tuesdays, it's with me, and the focus is paid advertising. Don't forget, we have the Friday listing-oriented Q&A at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, noon Eastern with Jason Master Mateo and Faith, as well as this week, Thursday, same time, we're going to have Stephen Pope, the Amazon guy himself, will be live on our Q&A to answer any of your questions directly. So come ask your questions. That's Thursday, noon, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Don't forget. Definitely want to take advantage of that chance to pose your questions to the Amazon guy himself. All right. So with that, let's dive into the paid ad spend questions. I'm excited to get to the list here. Go ahead. Oh, good evening from Lakeland. Like clockwork, Kevin. Good evening to you, sir. Sarfraz Shah. Hi, can we change the company name, LLC or UK Limited on Amazon? I'm not talking about brand name change. It's for company name. I'm going to go ahead and pass that one to Jason. I think that's a better question for either the Thursday or the Friday podcast that's listing oriented. That would, I know you're not talking about a brand name change, but it's a brand registry request. I know that much. Sometimes it is challenging once you've registered a brand to change it. If you're trying to talk about, like, I assume keep the same company name, but take a new brand name associated with that. I'm not going to pretend to know all the steps. That's a Jason Master Mateo question. I stick to the paid ad spend. So sorry about that. Josh Kennedy says, happy Tuesday, Matt. Happy Tuesday to you, Josh. Any tips for video ads? We are already doing sponsored products. Any difference in targeting or bid when doing video ads? Suggestions for the video tips or video itself? Any other tips or hacks? Great question, Josh. Okay, so that's a little bit multifaceted, so I'll sort of knock those out one at a time. So in terms of any differences in targeting or bids, yes, but in terms of what the differences are, it's really more dependent on campaign type, Josh, than if it's a video or not, because you could be talking about sponsored brand video. You could be talking about sponsored display video, right? And so with sponsored display, you can potentially do a variety of things with targeting, right? You can do demographic, you can do remarketing, you can do interest layering. So there's some other stuff that's associated typically, Josh, with what we call CPM targeting, which just means cost per mil. Think mil like millimeter, milliliter, right? It's 1,000, right? In this case, 1,000 viewable impressions. So every other targeting type on Amazon is CPC, which is cost per click, right? You don't pay unless the consumer potential buyer clicks on your ad. CPM means you're buying impressions in chunks, typically from distributors. So that's one potential difference, but again, it depends on what campaign type we're talking about. And then the other difference, I would say even with sponsored brand, right? A lot of times, some of the things you're used to, if you've only done sponsored products, like suggested bid range, for example, is often not available in sponsored brand video, sponsored brand types, campaign types, excuse me. So you kind of, the cost per click, especially on a new campaign, you kind of have to like sort of shoot in the dark a little bit more. You have to sort of rely on your external data sources and sort of the research you gathered off of Amazon versus just relying on a suggested bid. So that's another difference. And then, in terms of the video itself, even the first go to the Amazon.com web base and make sure, because the video, even the video specs need to be a little bit different, Josh, than like the listing video, right? That's typically the 7th image space on the main image, on the main listing, excuse me, will be a video. The settings, the spec settings for that video is different than a sponsored brand video or sponsored display video. So that's the first thing, is understand what they actually allow. Josh, these days you want to optimize for mobile, certainly. So that's the first tip I would give you is if you're doing video ads, just a higher and higher percentage of the population are engaging with your ads more often on mobile platforms than desktop. So make sure you're taking that into account. I would say typically, I think Amazon says 15 to 45 seconds, depending on the video type. I wouldn't go over 30, honestly. Get in, communicate your image, your USP, your unique sales proposition quickly, and get out, right? There's a whole bunch of good examples. I would lean on those as anecdotes, Josh. Maybe we can email offline, as opposed to trying to walk through the artistic nuances of what makes a good video, Josh. But I typically say just general guidelines from a marketer's perspective, right? Orient for mobile, get in, get out, get your message in quickly, right? 30 seconds tops. Anything longer than that, and you're hemming and hawing, and you're going to lose people. Beyond that, there's sort of creative. There's some creative guidelines, but I would just say, yeah, make sure that you. Oh, and then review the terms of service is the other big thing. Any sort of ad that either in content or in spec violates, you're gonna either it will run and then get pulled, or it will never get placed in the first place. It'll get suppressed. So just make sure you sort of stay within the lines in terms of what Amazon allows you to do. And then A/B test a lot, Josh. That's the other thing I would say is you might think you've got great creative, right? You went to a creative agency, you have it all worked out. This marketing agency assured you this is the best possible creative. I would order 2, right? Or if you've got like 30 seconds or a minute of footage, see if you can splice it together into 2 clips, A/B test it, and go with the one that converts better. Always be testing. That is, Josh, going to be a bigger and bigger part of who wins in Amazon e-com, but just in wider e-com generally. The ability to relevantly target traffic to sort of bring the right eyes to the right listing and the right product. Lots of people can do that effectively these days. What is going to start to become more and more the separator is how good you're creative. So you're right to be thinking that way. Good question. Greetings from the Philippines. Hey, greetings, Dave. Dave. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Okay. Sarfaraz, is it okay a campaign budget runs out every day after a couple hours? Should I increase the budget to run 24/7? The listing is still selling well when campaign runs out. Thanks. Typically, that's bad news. If the budget runs out, that means that ad is not displaying anymore, right? So if you were gunning for the top spot, for example, right, you are the old fable, the tortoise and the hare. You're now the hare taking a rest on the side of the road, right? Everybody else, that ball keeps bouncing. Everybody else is still going, still running their race. Now, so I would say what you sort of touched on with the last part of your question is what I'm going to get to with the next part, right? Should I increase the budget to run campaign 24/7? Well, that's a false equivocation. I think that's a false binary, Sarfraz. What I mean is, yes, I would look to run my campaign 24/7, always. But the first way I would seek to accomplish that is not just by increasing budget, right? I would go in and first see, how's it doing, right? How are we doing? What are we targeting? At what levels? What are the conversions? Like, what's the ACOS? How many orders have I sold, right? And then the other thing you mentioned is when it runs out, the listing is still selling well, right? So that means that you're organically doing well. So that can mean a couple of things, right? That can mean you've got a lot of organic traffic, right? Or people that know your brand by name, that are searching for you by name, that are finding your products because they know you and buying you without ads. That's great. It's not a bad thing not a bad problem to have at all, right? The other thing it could mean is that the targeting in that campaign that you're talking about is doing a lot of defensive targeting. It's targeting your own branded keywords. It's targeting your own ASINs, right? Or the net is so wide that there's a lot of overlap, and you're in some cases paying for purchases that you might have gotten organically. I do think defensive spending is not necessarily cannibalization, right? I know that everybody thinks, oh, anytime you're targeting 2 things in the same place, or right, and then it's automatically cannibalization. No, that's really not true. The difference is the key factor there is intent, right? Are you doing it with intent, or are you doing it just because you don't know better or because you're not aware of it in some cases, right? So first thing I would look to do, Sarfraz, is rather than just increase the budget, I would take a deep dive into my targeting, right? First, go to your campaign settings, right? What's the bidding behavior like? Am I doing dynamic up and down with top of search plus 900, right? Okay. That's probably making me more aggressive than I need to be. Also, go into the targeting, right? How am I doing on the targeting? What I would say is look to bid reduce the places that you don't convert well, right? that will allow the same amount of budget to spread further, right? I would only increase budget to keep a campaign in budget if it's already, I've gone in and I know it's perfectly optimized, right? I know the bids are already competitive, right? I know it's already converting at an ACOS that I'm comfortable, or ROAS that I'm comfortable with. And, the conversion rate is 20+%, and I'm still running out of budget. Okay, add budget. But even then, Sarfaraz, guess what I'm doing? If it's a sponsored product campaign, I'm probably implementing a performance-based budget rule, which, for those of you who don't know, it's like bumpers. It's like bumpers on your bowling alley, right? I don't know how many of you are bowlers, right? It allows the budget to increase so long as you maintain a certain performance standard. ROAS, CTR, or ACOS typically are the ones they let you base on, right? So even then, if I'm looking to increase my budget, I'm going to double your budget provided that your ACOS stays under 20%, whatever, right? Compound every day. So that's the thing is, yes, really, because you want to keep your campaigns in budget for the same reason you want to keep your listings in inventory and active, right? Because anytime they're not running. And so, yeah, if all you care about is spending the lowest amount possible on ads, then you don't really care, right? But if the objective is to grow your top line and to grow consumer awareness and to increase your indexing and ranking for search behaviors that you care about, anytime you're not running ads, your competitors still are, which means your indexing and ranking, especially for sponsored indexing and ranking, is dropping, probably plummeting, right? For those of you who shop on Amazon, as most of us do, right? Go search for your favorite product on Amazon right now and go find me the first organic product, the first organic listing. Did you have to scroll? My guess is you probably did, right? So everything you see right after the search before you touch your mouse is sponsored. Do you want to be a part of that or not, right? So that's why. But I wouldn't just, the increasing budget would be the last method that I would look to do. And that's only after I get it to a place where I'm converting well, right? If it's ACOS is not something that I'm comfortable with, don't spend more, right? Hope that answers your question. I don't have anybody to check me here, so I can just keep talking forever. So those of you at the back of the line, there's a fair chance I might not get to all the questions today. I talk a lot. Hi, Karen, my favorite. Hi, Karen. How are you, sir? Okay, there's part 1 out of 2. He always comes with these multiple part questions here. Is there a way we can see ASIN-level search term data via some downloadable report? Yeah, I mean, again, I would say go look at our video. You have to sort of download a report and then do a pivot to break it out by ASIN. It's I've got literally a video on the YouTube channel that talks about exactly that. But it's advertised product reports, and then you that will give you the campaigns and the portfolios of everything and the SKU and ASIN attached to them. And then you take that report with a performance report and you pivot table. It's not that hard. I think just explaining it to you there, it sounded more complex than it was. Go look at the YouTube channel, search pivot tables or something like that, or ASIN by ASIN breakdown. I got a video. It's also on my Instagram page for those of you, in my link tree for those of you guys who follow me on social media. I talk about exactly that, how to do it, because it's a common request, an ASIN by ASIN report. But show search terms, but within their respective campaigns. Yeah, that's the search term report shows search terms, but within their, yeah. So advertised product report, Karen, is what you want, the advertised product report. Part 2 of 2, the targeting report shows exactly, yeah. Yeah, so that's why you have to sort of download 2 reports, because the advertising product report also has campaign level, ad group, ASIN, and SKU data all in that report, and then you mix it with a performance report and with a pivot table. Again, youtube.com/myamazonguy. I broke it all out. It's about a 5 to 8 minute video that shows you how to do it. It's really not that hard. Hope that helps. What are some of the most effective methods to reduce TACOS, and how much, and can too much spend on PPC impede in getting a healthy TACOS? Healthy being sub 20%. Yes, absolutely. You can spend too much on PPC. Typically that happens when it either happens with new products, new listings, new companies, new brands to Amazon, or it happens when there's a lot of competition and very little brand loyalty in a category space. And it's like whichever brand is seen first typically gets the purchase. that's another one where PPC can be sort of the whole point of PPC, right, is over time to improve your conversion, your indexing, and your ranking for relevant search behaviors that you care about, so that on average your PPC drops, your organic sales go up, right? And it is about finding that balance. Typically, Karen, we say a 2 to 3 to 1 organic to PPC sale ratio is, again, it depends on what your sale price is, what your category, go-to-market strategy, yada, yada, yada. But typically that's like a healthy range, right? So if I had a client and onboarding with a client today and they're like, yeah, PPC is 48% of my sales right now. That's too high, right? That's not enough organic spend or organic success, excuse me. So most effective methods to reduce ACOS, I would be careful about that, right? I know tacos I know is sort of the hero statistic these days that everyone in paid ad spend looks at, right? For those of you guys who don't know what tacos is, that's true or total average cost of sale, right, for your advertising. That looks at your advertising spend as a comparative ratio to your total revenue, advertising plus organic, right, divided by your ad spend. And the objective there is to sort of get a look at the difference between how much you're spending on ads and how much revenue you're bringing back from that channel overall. So it's a very good indicator to show you your overall success on Amazon, but it's really a trailing indicator, Karen. It shows you where you've been, not where you're going. So I would say the most effective methods to reduce tacos are often similar to the methods most effective to reduce ACOS, but not always, right? You want to index and rank organically for the behaviors you care about more over time. So sometimes a short-term spike in ACOS can actually lead to a long-term reduction in tacos because you're buying up more ad space across relevant behaviors. And if you do it well, right, you start to convert for those behaviors, your organic indexing and ranking come up, your CPC goes down, all's right with the world, right? So methods to reduce tacos really is to find more conversion for less at-bats, right, which is very similar to ACOS, but with the slight difference that I feel like ACOS is more, you're sort of in a vacuum, right? With tacos, you really want to be looking at, okay, what are the indexing behaviors that I care about? Keyword, ASIN, demographic, whatever it is that you're like, wow, that behavior wins for me. What are the search terms that you really care about, right? Are you improving the ranking and the indexing on those over time? And is your ad strategy helping you support that based on what you're targeting, right? So I wouldn't get too caught up in tacos when we're talking about ad spend, other than you want to compare your organic to your sponsored numbers because cannibalization, right? If you're doing defensive spending, if you're doing branded keywords or targeting it, you certainly want to know if there's a certain percentage of your customers that we're going to find and buy you anyway. Not that some overlap isn't a bad thing, because again, right, you want to make sure that you've sort of planted your flag in every sponsored brand space. Again, if growth is the number one goal. Now, if conversion and efficiency is the number one goal, then maybe you don't want to do that. But I wouldn't say too much PPC spend can impede a healthy tacos, but too much ineffective, right, not efficient PPC spend can absolutely, right. And I would say, yeah, you're right. Healthy being sub 20% depends obviously on the total sale price and the market, but typically anywhere from like 12 to 15 these days is really healthy tacos for most products. So I would say sub 20% certainly for most products. You need to be there. But yeah, it's not so much about, try not to think of it in terms of spend levels. You're looking for conversion, right? Think of it in terms of CTR and conversion percentage. And before you ask, there's no one healthy CTR. It's based on your brand, your TSP, your competition. Just look more as a metric over time. Look as it changes over time. And then conversion, again, there's some variance, but if you're selling something from $10 to $80 or $90, typically anything under 10% conversion and you're not converting effectively enough, and anything over 20, 25% conversion, and you're probably leaving sales on the table, and you should actually broaden the net. So I would look at tacos as more of like a marker of like, yeah, this is working or not working. Be careful about methods to reduce it from a paid ad spend perspective, because you're pulling a lever in paid ad spend and it's having a direct impact in your paid ad spend. And then maybe like 2 weeks to 4 weeks later, it's trickling down to your organic side, right? And how do you measure the exact impact of that, right? Be careful. So I would say generally just live. There's a reason, by the way, you don't see a taco stat inside the campaign manager, right? Try and live on start to notice the statistic correlation between how you do in certain things and how that results impacts your bottom line, your business report, right? So, I spiked my ACOS from 30 to 40%. What did that do to my conversion rate? What did that do to my tacos 3 weeks later, right? It's a trailing indicator. So it tells you where you've been, not where you're going. It is the best single indicator of success, but I would just focus more on conversion and ACOS rather than tacos, at least in terms of targeting and levers you have to pull on within the advertising console. Next question. Oh, you're welcome. Starfuzz says, thank you, Matthew. It was very helpful regarding campaign running out of budget. Bundle, thanks. Bundle of gratitude back to you, sir. Sorry I couldn't answer your brand registry, your company name question more effectively. I quickly figured out where I was best in this game, and I dove right into it. So I'm all about the paid ad spend. But Jason Master Mateo or Stephen Pope, they're both geniuses with this stuff. Thursday, Friday, either one. They'll have the answer for you. So, but happy that I was able to help you with one of those questions. Jeffrey Vallon, when doing bulk analysis for ACOS and bid updates, which specific reports do you use? Typically advertised product report and targeting report and search query performance report. Those are the three, depending on what exactly I'm trying to find in terms of information. But for ACOS and bid updates, right, I want to look at how it's performing. And then if I want to break it out by ASIN or product selection, then that's why I need the advertised product report. So one of those three, a combination of those three, typically, Jeffrey, will be the most useful, most commonly used downloaded reports in my experience. Again, there's a video on that on the YouTube channel. Next question, please. Brandon Gable wants to know about modifiers. I've heard the term broad match with modifiers a lot lately. Yeah, it's very chic these days. I don't see any option for modifiers when setting up a broad match campaign. What is this referring to? I'm not performing an exorcism on you, Brandon. This is the symbol, the plus symbol. There's a video on this as well, but all it is you do a broad match campaign, a broad match targeting campaign, Brandon. And then when you select your terms, right, you enter a list rather than selecting the prefabricated list when you're selecting your keyword targets. Type out, right, plus Chobani, plus yogurt, plus beverage, right, whatever it is. What that is doing is basically narrowing the net. To make sure that all of those are included in the right order. So you must have the first term plus the second term plus the third term. Brandon, if you're saying that sounds to me exactly like phrase match, what's the difference? Fantastic question. For those of you guys who watch this podcast regularly, I'm always saying I'm only dogmatic to the data. What I mean by that is every month, somebody on LinkedIn, somebody on YouTube in this advertising space that we're in has got a new vogue advertising targeting strategy, like this is the moneymaker 2.0 2000 XXX plus extreme premium, right? And it's the best strategy you've ever seen. And that might be true in a case study, right? Typically they have a case study that shows that it's so great. On that one occasion for that one brand, for that one go-to-market strategy, it might have worked. But really, I just look at data and let it guide me. So bringing that back to Brandon's question here. Conceptually, I don't really, to this day, understand why broad match modifier is different than phrase match. Essentially, what you're doing, Brandon, by adding the plus symbol is you're saying and, right? You're saying, I only want to target this and this and this, right? Together. And if you do it wrong with the pluses in terms of spacing or anything, it'll be red. It won't let you add it as a term. But so there's a video on this in terms of the specific format to use. Check it out. It's like 5 minutes or less. But that's why you're not seeing a broad match with modifiers type. With modifier means you're adding that plus symbol in between root terms to create a composite term. It's essentially trying to sort of have our cake and eat it too, right? We're trying to get the wide net volume and traffic exposure of a broad campaign. with a little bit higher efficiency level of a phrase, or even in the exact match campaign. When my team is always doing testing, right? And this is why I have my team members on these podcasts so often, right? Because as a department head, you have to do a lot of administration. And so you don't get to spend as much time in the data as you used to when you're just a specialist, right? So a lot of my guys and gals are doing testing and are learning new things that they then have to teach me. So when I had one of my team members come to me and tell me about broad match modifier, I was like, that's voodoo, right? That's just the next like super modified extreme strategy for ads on Amazon 2.35 thousand, right? That's what I thought it was. Just the next BS thing to make you buy the ad service, buy the whatever it is that person is selling. That's what I thought, because conceptually it didn't make a difference. It didn't make sense to me. But then we've tested it, right? We've A/B tested it across. We represent over 300 clients. We manage hundreds and millions, it might even be up to billions of ad dollars annually now. I would say about 80% of the time, it works like a charm. It is a traffic generating, converting beast of a campaign. I don't know why. It typically produces, not always, right? I said about 80% of the time. That leaves about 20% of the time, right? So where it's not going to work, right? So I understand anecdotally it's not going to work every time, but for those of you who have case studies, right? But 4 out of 5 advertisers recommend. What we see across most accounts is that it builds a lot of traffic and also has the ability to convert at a typically higher efficiency clip than standard broad match. So Brandon, that's why it's gotten a lot of talk lately, is because it's sort of the new vogue thing that's working. I don't know why exactly it behaves differently than a phrase match typically, but it does. So give it a try. With anything, right? You got to test it and then let the data tell you a story and then course correct. That's why I say only be dogmatic to the data, only be religious to the data, right? Everything else, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I hope that was a good explanation. Next question, please, Geraldine. You're welcome, Josh. Happy to be of service, my friend. Sarfaz, I have ACOS 20% on these campaigns when budget runs out. So again, Sarfaz, everybody's a little bit different in terms of their landed cost and what they have in terms of margin, right? So I've had clients where 20% ACOS and they're sending me free product and they're sending me gifts. I've had 20% ACOS where it's like a retention call and they're talking about firing me, right? So typically 20% ACOS is very healthy, right? That's for most products, for most go-to-market strategies on Amazon. 20%, I would say broadly is considered a healthy ACOS. That might not be for you, but for most advertisers, that would be, or for most, brand owners, that would be a healthy ACOS. So in that case, would I still look to optimize? Yes, but in that case, I might look to increase my budget there, Sarfaz. Try a performance-oriented budget rule. So if you're at 20% now, double the budget under a budget rule, right? Performance-oriented budget rule, which basically says, all right, I give you the permission to double the budget as long as your ACOS stays under 25%, right? And then you can have it check compound either daily or weekly to look and see if you're still meeting that metric. If you're not, it will reduce the budget to its former level. So it's like a little safety net. So you might try that. But yeah, 20% ACOS, most go-to-market strategies, I would say that's pretty healthy, and you can feel free to turn up the juice. You'll get more, especially if that campaign's only running a couple hours a day. Now, the other aspect I know you mentioned was your organic doesn't really drop that much. So that's the other thing I would look at the targeting data is there a target in particular where it's branded keywords or it's a defensive target where I'm targeting myself in effect? That's another wrinkle that you got to consider, right? Am I cannibalizing my sales? Can I turn it down and still do just as well? But I would turn it down, not off, right? That's why bid reduce rather than pause. Good question, or good follow-up. Saad says, what will be the best strategy? I normally use down only and keep my TOS, that's a top of search placement modifier, at 20 to 25%. So for those of you who don't understand what he's saying, what Saad is saying right now is dynamic down only bid strategy and plus 20 to 25% bid for a top of search placement in particular, right? Where my ad shows right at the tippy top of search on the first page, right? I have an auto campaign and manual targeting on different audiences. My listings are new, 2 months with 4.8 ratings and over 20 and 15 to 20 reviews. I'd say you're off to a good start, but so you have a bunch of different campaigns here, right? You wouldn't want the same targeting strategy for different campaign types any more than you'd want the same protective gear for different members of a football team or different members of a cricket team, right? 20 to 25% is going to make you more aggressive for that placement in particular. So one thing I would say, Saad, is does the data back that up, right? You can look in your campaign history or your campaign navigation tab. There's a tab called placements, and it will show you broken out by top of search, rest of search, product page, how you doing, right? Like by placement, how do these ads do? So that's the first thing I would say is, does going up top of search, is it warranted, right? Are you doing better or at least as well on those top of search placements compared to the rest? Now, dynamic down only is the most conservative bid strategy. So you're basically saying, be really, really conservative with my bid unless it's top of search, and then I'll be a bit more aggressive. Again, it depends on the campaign type, and it depends because each campaign should have a different objective. So like your auto campaign should not have the same objective as your manual exact, right? Your manual exact is largely a conversion oriented campaign. Your auto campaign is a research campaign. It's a brand awareness campaign. It's, hey, I want that search report. I want to learn what's happening when my consumers interact with my products and ads and listings based on different behaviors, based on different avenues that they use to find me, right? So it's hard to give one answer here because you threw in a bunch of different campaign types. But I would generally say top of search is great if either you do really well in conversion, so you want to be the first one there, or you're top line oriented to the point where you don't care about being as efficient, right? So top line, being top of search means you're going to be exposed to, on average, a wider net, right? Maybe traffic that's not always as high quality or not as willing to buy, or maybe not as relevant to the specific offering that you're making. So you'll typically get more orders, but at a less efficient clip. Now, it looks like you're trying to sort of have your cake and eat it too by doing dynamic down only, which is a more conservative bid strategy. But the other thing about dynamic down only is it might take you out of a lot of bids that you would want to win, or at least show up in. If it's a new campaign and it looks like relatively new listings, 2 months old or less, indexing and ranking is really important for you, Saad. I would try fixed bids in a lot of cases where you're doing dynamic down. Again, maybe a wide net auto campaign, you ignore that advice and just leave it dynamic down. But most of your manual targeting, especially if it's new listings, new ads, I think you get better traffic with fixed bids. And then you can still, I'm not saying don't bid conservatively, right? Bid it down until you're not costing yourself an arm and a leg, until your ACOS is healthy, right? But you can bid that down with fixed bids. All fixed bids means is just manual, right? It just means that you're not having machine learning do any automatic changes for you. I think you'll do better early on with fixed bids in most cases. I used to be a big proponent of dynamic down. I'm really not too much a fan of it. Really, dynamic down I only use if I'm really trying to be hyper conservative. I'm really trying to cut costs, really trying to control that ACOS, control spend. If that's not my primary focus by a country mile, I'm probably doing fixed. That'd be my recommendation. Karen says, I think I found the pivot table search term video you're referring to. It's not you in the video, right? It's someone else doing the video. So Karen, there's both. Orkin did one, who's our senior PPC manager. I think he did one, or Adil, one of our PPC team members. And then I also did one. So there should be one in there for me. So might try ASIN by ASIN targeting, Karen, if that one didn't work, because that was the objective of the pivot table in the video that I did. Not that the video by Adil or Orkin or whoever did the other one, that will still get you where you need to go. But if you want to see the one that I did, I think it's try ASIN by ASIN breakdown. I can send you the link, Karen, after this if you're curious. I think we have emails, right? Matthew at My Amazon Guy. Shoot me an email. Hey, Sarfaz. Okay, another one. Most customers search our products by our brand name, and that's probably why you have a lot of PPC, heavy orientation on PPC search, right? Should I negate the brand name in phrases and broad matches? I wouldn't negate. Again, if it's auto campaign, maybe in some cases, right? But negation for relevant stuff, especially if it's converting, I know it's cannibal. Like I know. You're probably going to win there organically anyway. I know. Don't yell at me. I can hear you guys yelling at me through the camera. But try bid reduction first, Sarfaz, right? So look at your cost per click over time as a watermark, right? What's been the typical cost per click? And then if it's a sponsored product campaign, right, you should also have a suggested bid range, which will show you typically what other people are paying for an impression, right? It'll give you a suggestion, and then it'll give you a range. So that's going to clue you into whether your current bids are aggressive or conservative, right? Why does that matter? Well, if you're, trying to reduce traffic and you're already bidding well below what everybody else is bidding or the common CPC, you're probably not going to get a lot of traction. But I would definitely try, Sarfaz, first, second, third bid reduction on those places where you want to test, like, am I cannibalizing because I'm targeting my brand name in phrase and broad match? I would certainly say you need a combination of both, right? In order to get organic, you need unbranded search terms, right? You need to sort of broaden your horizons into those markets. But I wouldn't ignore branded terms just because you might win them anyway. Again, you still want to populate those sponsored places so that you don't get, bled off in conversion in terms of, because other people are, if there's enough volume, Sarfaz, behind your brand as a search term, your competitors are going to bid on that too, right? So if you just go, I'm going to negate everything on my brand name because it's cannibalization and I'm going to win it organically. Well, maybe, but not necessarily, right? Because you might still be organic number one for your brand name, but if you turn off all ad spend on your brand name and somebody searches your brand name, all your competitors have 6, 10, 12 bites at the apple to try and steal that customer away from you with an ad that maybe has a prettier image or a lower price, right? Before they get to you. So it is a balancing act, and there's no like hard line, like this is the amount of defensive spend percentage wise, right? Typically you don't want too much, right? I would say no more than like 10 or 20% defensive spend, but there's a reason it's called defensive spend. So I would try, rather than negating your brand name in phrase and broad match, right? Because I understand you are paying PPC, you are paying for clicks. And in some cases they might've found you, if they're searching for your brand, there's a certain amount of brand loyalty there. Maybe they were going to buy you organically anyway, right? So what you want to do, Sarfaz, the way to test that, I hope I'm not butchering your name, I apologize if I am, by the way, is bid reduce down on those branded search terms, and then go and look at your organic indexing and ranking for the behaviors you care about, the top behaviors, and then look at your business reports, right? Does your top line drop off a cliff? If it stays consistent, I would leave those bids low, right? Now, if your top line drops, right, then what that says is you're losing a certain amount of potential customers to your competition. So A/B test it. But I would, in general, if it's relevant, I would only negate when there's no opportunity to effectively bid reduce, just in general, because traffic has intrinsic value. Next question. Oh, thanks, Karen. Oh, I appreciate you. Yeah, I love your questions. I love your engagement. Karen always brings the super challenging, really thought out, in-depth questions. So I appreciate you on a number of levels. We'll see you next week, I'm sure. Take care. Sarfraz says, thank you, Matt. I'm planning on booking a coaching call with you soon. We love it. I love to coach all our PPC campaigns to get your advice on it. As always, you share tons of value. Bundle thing. Hey, I appreciate your attention. That is absolutely why I do this, and why I get excited for this part of my job is I want to add value to you guys. In 2015, 2016, I was in your shoes, trying to figure it out, making every mistake. And so My knowledge was acquired slowly and painfully over several years. I love bringing value to this community and helping people win on Amazon. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. Brandon, new campaign part 1. Ooh, this is a multi-parter. It doesn't even say out of how many. It's exciting, Brandon. All right. I've noticed 2 separate occasions that when I launch a new campaign, that suddenly, and for about 24 to 48 hours, my overall sales and campaign performances come to a halt. Then maybe after a day, things go back to normal. At this point, the new campaign either performs well or doesn't, but I'm curious how common this is and why it might happen. Okay. So, when I launch a new campaign, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So the one thing I'll say is be sure that they're actually coming to a halt and that we're not just talking about an attribution delay. Right? Because it's important to remember with Amazon advertising, the attribution window is 7 days for sponsored product and up to 14 days for sponsored brand and sponsored display. Now, typically the data will show up more quickly than that, right? It typically doesn't take that long. But when you start to live in the dailies, as we say, right, that can be a problem. Is you look at 1 day or 2 days and it's drawing a blank. You might be dealing with an attribution or a data delay. Or it might be that ad is momentarily suppressed, that something about the way you set it up or the nature of your product or listing, Brandon, is such that Amazon wants to take a look at it before it lets you go live, make sure that you're meeting terms of service. Typically, that's without seeing your listing and without being in your campaign manager, 2 most common causes, right? It's an attribution data. It is acquiring data and it's a data delay, and your attribution window just broadened that out a little bit. Or it just isn't running yet. There's some delay between you going active and it letting it actually deliver to the consumer. So that's the most common ways. But again, shoot me an email offline and maybe we can get into the details, the specifics. I'll go look at your listing. Matthew@myamazonguy.com. 2 T's in Matthew. Thanks, Brandon. Saad, thank you, Matt. We'll look into data. Very informative session. Stay blessed. Hey, blessings back to you, sir. I really appreciate your time and attention. Really appreciate that I can add value and keep your interest this long. Thank you. Jordan Lee, hey, regular contributor, Jordan Lee Smith. Any PPC tips going into the Christmas season? I'm noticing bids are creeping higher and higher. How to best keep within budgets? Yeah, Jordan Lee, great question. I just literally was coaching my team, my department this morning on just that. Yeah, typically what you see is with Christmas holiday season from Black Friday till about 2-3 days before Christmas, depending on the product. It's like a protracted extended Prime Day, which is that lasts the whole month, right? So good side of things, lots more people shopping, right? Lots more eyeballs on Amazon, lots more potential customers. If your top line doesn't go up during this period and you're not selling like lawn fertilizer or back to school gear, what are you even doing with your Amazon life, right? You're missing the boat somehow. There's going to be a lot more purchases. So your top line should definitely go up. That's the good news. Bad news, right? More consumers means more competition. The secret's out, right? People shop online a lot, right? This is not 1998. Everybody knows. Everybody's going to do at least a certain part of their shopping for the holiday season online, right? So that means that businesses and advertisers are there too. More people spending more advertising dollars means, as Jordan Lee hinted, right? Bids, your average cost per click is going to creep up. Your budgets as a result are also going to creep up. Your ACOS may or may not, right? But it depends on your product and your individual sort of brand and go-to-market strategy. But typically budgets and bids are going to get more expensive. What I would look to do is, you're going to have to, for the behaviors that matter for you, you're going to have to bid more competitively or risk getting left behind, right? So if your bid stays stagnant, cost per click goes up 20%, you're still in the room, but you're not winning the impression anymore, right? Which means as a result, you're not getting an opportunity to win that sale. Your top line might fall. The last 2 Prime days, we haven't yet had a chance to, at My Amazon Guy, our team's always getting better and better, right? So our audit team in particular, led by my senior manager, Orkin Dusgan, they've become really good at what they do because we keep getting better over time. And so one of the things that we've been able to get better at is scale reporting, right? So with Prime Day, both Prime Days this year, because Amazon did 2 Prime Days, we were able to comprehensively review everything we did across like 320 plus accounts. What we found in both cases, now this isn't the Christmas season, right? We didn't have the capability to at scale derive macro conclusions across 300 plus accounts at this time last year. That was a capability we've gained in the last 365 days. But so for Prime Days 1 and 2 this year, we comprehensively reviewed and we looked at like, okay, who increased their bids and budgets for Prime Day and who didn't amongst our client base, and what was the result. And what we found is that like there was like a 30% on average increase in top line for on average like a 2 to 4% ACOS growth, which was like nothing. And actually ACOS grew more for people that didn't respond to our request to increase bids and budgets than those that did. Meaning those that got more aggressive with their bids and budgets actually had a smaller ACOS increase. It was an increase, but a smaller increase than those that just stayed with their stagnant bid and budget structure as they had been prior to the holiday season, right? And the why of that is, again, not always, right? Anecdotally, in a case-by-case basis, things can always differ, but at scale, across the majority of our accounts, what we found is those that didn't increase their budget, right, got left behind, and so didn't get let into the auction room for their most valuable behaviors, so to speak. And so as a result, their ACOS went up because they weren't actually able to compete for their most highly converting behaviors. Now, does that mean that that's going to happen for you? Oh, Matt told me to turn up my budgets and bids by 300% and it didn't work. I'm not saying that. I'm always going to say let the data guide you in your individual circumstance, right? You should be in your data, if not every day, at least every other day, every third day at the absolute outside, right? Passive income, that's 2007 on Amazon. Leave that myth in the past where it belongs. So it requires active hand, but I would say for your most valuable behaviors, Jordan Lee, the ones where you know you crush it and convert at a high clip, start to bring those bids up to stay competitive. And if that means that you have to increase your budget, in some cases, even significantly, like typically we recommend, like for Prime Day, a 2 to 3x budget increase for a given campaign, right? If it's doing a certain clip, what it should do during the holiday or Prime Day season. And then we reduce at the end of that time, right? We get skinny again December 26th or the weekend following Prime Day, right? But yeah, I would definitely recommend staying with it. And then if you need to cut budget or you need to cut bids in other places, use that filter tab, right? Which campaigns have 20, 30, 40 clicks and 0 sales? That's an easy no-brainer to cut or kill budget on those, right? Which of your campaigns have a good amount of engagement and are ×2 or higher your target ACOS? That's another one, right? Where you can sort of, if you're looking to skim the fat so that you have room to give budget and bids in other places. But Jordan Lee, you're going to need, so I would say optimize, right? Don't just needlessly in bulk increase bids everywhere, but the places you convert, increase them. And then to keep within budgets, like I said, yeah, cut from places where you're not performing well, right? And then performance-oriented budget rules. And the other thing you can do is schedule-oriented budget rules, meaning, okay, I want to give this campaign double the budget until December 22nd. You can do that on a calendar too, right? So play around with the budget rules. You can do it based on performance. You can do it based on schedule. That will sort of put some bumper lanes into it, right? Where, okay, I've doubled my budget, but now if the ACOS goes beyond the level that I prescribed, it's going to skinny that budget down again. But in general, I would say get ready to be a bit more aggressive in the places where you know you win. The increase in top line should more than make up for the slight tick increase in ACOS. At least, again, that's what we've seen from sort of some comprehensive reporting across 320 accounts. Tip of the cap to Orkin Dusgun and his audit team for getting so good at macro reporting that we now have the ability to do that at scale. Great question. Jason Master Mateo, the genius account director at my Amazon. He's a senior account director. He runs the Friday podcast for all things listing. You guys have questions listing oriented. That's 9 Pacific, noon Eastern on Friday. Matt, help. How can I use SB video campaigns to get an advantage over my competition? We buy with our eyes these days, and video is becoming more competitive than ever. I would say sponsored brand video is typically a mid to top level funnel strategy, meaning on average, it's not going to be your highest, your most efficient in terms of cost per sale, right? Cost per acquisition. What video campaigns in general and sponsored brand video is very good at is growing awareness for your brand, right? Just like it sounds, sponsored brand. Growing awareness, bringing your brand to new consumers, new customers that might be interested in products like yours that are not currently aware. So how effective is it, right? Is the creative matters here, right? The sponsored brand, how with visual, right? The text is for the bots, the images are for the people. Stephen Pope is fond of saying, right? Visually with your video, how can you show me what you're selling and why I need it, what problem you're solving as quickly as possible? First 5 to 8 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, right? And it's mid to top level. So I would say it's not, right, earlier I was talking about different campaigns have different jobs, right? So that is a campaign where the problem you're trying to solve with sponsored brand video is expanding your awareness, right? It's not the one that you're looking to have 3% ACOS. It's the one that you want to generate a ton of new traffic and bring your brand to new consumers. Good question, Jason M. Oh, thanks for the sticker, Rodney. Appreciate that. Always grateful for those little donations. If my product is an accessory for a trademark brand, example, chapstick, can I use the brand name in my keywords? Thanks for the valuable content. So I want to, you're welcome, Rodney. I want to distinguish what you mean when you say keywords. So when you say keywords, if you are talking things that you target within Campaign Manager in a paid ad sense, yes, you can target literally anything under the sun. The dirtiest word that you've ever thought of that your mom would rinse your mouth out with soap if she knew you were thinking it, you can target that in the back end of Amazon advertising, right? Because it's not consumer facing at all. So because Amazon can't control like a consumer searching for something very naughty, right? If enough people search for something naughty, then there's search volume behind it. Then there's a monetary value for advertisers to target it. In the back end, there's very, very little that you can't target. Now, where you might run into trouble, Rodney, is the listing, right? Image, titles, bullets, A+ alt text. Yes, even the alt text for your images. Your back-end SEO, right? So the SEO, the keywords that you in the edit listing things, right? Be very careful, right? Those things, if you violate trademark, if you violate, right, a term of service, right, targeting something naughty, alcohol, right, stuff like that, you can get your listing suppressed or your ad suppressed, right? So also if your image has something naughty or a trademark violation, definitely is going to get trademark suppressed, right? But in terms of keyword targeting, right, Rodney, I'm building a campaign. I'm creating a list of keywords in a sponsored product campaign, and I want to know if I can target chapstick, Kleenex, Nike, Fruit of the Loom, Under Armour, whatever. Absolutely, you can. Mohammed says, hi, how do placements work for product ASIN targeting campaigns? For example, what does top of search versus product pages mean if there's only one spot for when you are targeting a product? Thanks. Okay. So I assume that last part of the question means like there can only be one top of search, right? Yes, you're competing for that, right? You're competing for that top placement. So placements work for product ASIN targeting campaigns. So product page is, if you go to an ASIN, right? You go to a listing and you scroll down and you see there's like more products like this, or because you purchased, you might like, right? And there's a scroll of related products or competitor products. Often those are sponsored, right? You see the little sponsored logo there in real small print. So that's product page placement. And so Placements, right? That is basically what you're saying is, right? It helps me to think of this as like, right, because this is a virtual auction, I like to think of it in the physical presence, right? So basically that's you walking into an auction and saying, I will pay more to show up in a specific place, right? I will pay more if my ASIN lands on a competitor's product page, right? So that's what product page means. And then top of search means top of search. Means I will pay more if my ad shows up right at the tippy top, right? So if I search Chobani yogurt, what is the first sponsored listing ad image that shows up there? What you're saying is my bid might be $1, but if I'm plus 100%, then for top of search, what I'm saying is if you show my ad right at the tippy top, I'll pay $2, right? Hope that answers your question. Thanks for it. Bids. Oof, Brandon's got a bunch of multi-parters. Call George Lucas. All right, bids part 1. Please try to unpack the search term winning bid process. For example, how many impressions are available in each moment? Is it derived directly from the number of customer searches? Yes, it's the number of customer searches and then the number of times the number of ad placements available on the page, right? So, whoa. Don't you jump the gun on me. Sorry, Geraldine. Yeah. So, right. So, it's how many people are searching for that related behavior, and right, and then how many places on the PDP are there to display, right? So how many other people are trying to win that same bid is sort of, and then how many customers are searching is going to impact that, right? Okay, part 2. So yeah, it's customer searches and number of places that you can. That's why, by the way, if you've noticed, the number of ad types and the number of places that ads show up on the Amazon PDP have gone up over the years. It doesn't take a genius, right? If your number one moneymaker is ad revenue, all I got to do is put more ads in more places, and it doesn't cost me any overhead, and it's instant revenue, right? So, for example, okay, part 2. For example, for each customer search of a term, roughly how many spots can be won? Somebody wins the sponsor positions at the top. Somebody wins. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to depend, right? So potentially infinite. I will say, Brandon, sponsored product doesn't show in the same place as sponsored brand, doesn't show in the same place as sponsored display. So if you're in a sponsored product campaign, you can only show in a placement for a sponsored product campaign. Sponsored brand, right? They all have their unique places. For each customer search of a term, how many spots can be won? Yeah, that's tough to say because even in different categories, Brandon, have different numbers of placements available, right? So like give you one that's like very limited and restricted, books, right? If I'm selling books, there's going to be a different number of potential placements that I could win searching drinks, right? I don't know the exact to tell you the truth. But that's why I say target liberally, bid conservatively. Brandon, what you're touching on is exactly why that, right? Is you want to keep your costs low, but you want to target you want to plant your flag in as many places as you can afford to do so for that exact reason. Because if you don't, somebody else will. Part 3, lower on the page, then the spots even lower down than the sponsor display placements. Yeah, so that's the one thing I will say, right? The very tippy top of the page is sponsored brand. Right below that is sponsored product. You scroll down a bit, and in the margins, you see sponsored display. And then down below, there's more sponsored brand. If you go to a product page more like us, it's sponsored product. That is the one thing you clued into that you're correct, Brandon. Each campaign type has specific places that it can display, meaning sponsored product campaign will always show up in a sponsored product place on the page, right? It will never show up. Sponsored brand will always be the first ad you see, followed by the top 4 to 6 to 8 sponsored products, a bunch of organic, right? Then you'll see sponsored display. It's always going to be like that. Yeah. Rodney says, very helpful response, Matt. Thanks. You are certainly welcome. I'm not mentioning the trademark brand name anywhere in my listing, but we'll use it in PPC campaigns. Yeah. The only thing you got to watch for, Rodney, and then the way you want to test that, right, is because you're not targeting anywhere in your campaigns or back-end SEO, on average, your CPC will be a little bit higher and your conversion will be a little bit lower, right? Because you don't have any organic to sort of pull the weight with you. So most of my competitors are intentionally misspelling the trademark brand in their listings. Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing you can do. And by the way, if there's enough search volume in the back end, do a look at your brand analytics tab, look at Helium third-party data to see what the search volume is like. If there's a bunch of search volume for a misspelled word, for a Spanish word that means the same thing, right? If it's relevant and there's volume, it's got value. Bilal says, hi, Bilal. Does dynamic down only spend less because of less impressions, or does it actually perform better than fixed bid? Can we actually trust Amazon to show us only buyers who are more like, I mean, no, I don't think you can trust Amazon. If you're by law, if you're forcing me to give you a binary answer to, can we trust Amazon? The answer is always going to be probably no. But let me give you a little bit more of a nuanced answer than that. Dynamic down only is going to reduce your bid if it feels that the traffic is either of lower quality, of less relevance to your brand or your product. It's going to apply its machine learning, its algorithm to try and do that for you. Yes. It's not a scam, right? But it's based on machine learning, and it's important to note that like campaigns have indexing and ranking history much the same way listings do, right? So if you're a brand new, and this is why in that earlier question, I was saying for new listings, go with fixed for the most part, right? Because it doesn't really know what your campaign is, right? It doesn't really know who you are when you start a new campaign or what you're selling or exactly what behaviors are going to line up most effectively. Same way with an auto campaign, right? It's kind of just testing, right? It's showing you around and seeing, like letting you interact with some search behaviors over here, some traffic over here, seeing what's happening, right? And then getting smarter over time. So I would say, yeah, dynamic down only is going to be much more effective if this is a mature campaign that's been running for a year that you're like, whoa, cost's getting a little crazy this holiday season. Let me switch to dynamic down only. That probably is going to be effective in reducing your ACOS. If it's a brand new campaign, it's got as good a chance of pulling you out of an auction that you would win as an auction you'd lose. It doesn't really know you that well. So that's why I say with new campaigns, new brands, new listings in particular, I like fixed bids better just because, yeah, I don't trust the machine learning. To answer your second part of that question, no, I don't trust Amazon. So fixed bid, win, lose, or draw, at least I know it's my manually set bid, right? If the ACOS is through the roof, I can manually reduce it myself. I don't need Amazon to do it for me, right? So that's why. So it's not, it is going to give you less impressions, right? And I will say that, again, it can be effective in places, but it's not, I would shy away from generally, Bilal, mass incorporating where it's like, oh, I've got 100 campaigns and 80 of them are dynamic down. No. If you have 100 campaigns, probably 80 of them should be fixed and maybe 10 are dynamic down and 10 are dynamic up and down, right? It's the outliers that should utilize the machine learning, not the, that shouldn't be your sort of you shouldn't over rely on that, especially in the early going. Good question. Algorithm part 1. All right. How much does it hurt a campaign performance to run out of budget each day versus keeping it consistently afloat? Sometimes just by dropping bids just before bed. Yeah, I know it's a lot of work, Brandon. I mean, yeah, I think it does hurt you. But I would say look to selectively drop bids rather than doing it each time before bed. Which are the bids that are not converting and lower those, right? Which are the ones that have higher ACOS and fewer converted sales? Lower those and leave them low. It does. Anytime, I mean, again, it's like because it has history, right? Every time your ad is not running, again, all your competitors are still running the race. That ball keeps bouncing. So anytime you're not active, right? Look at suppressed ad in terms of within the context of your advertising goal is the same as a suppressed listing, right? You're out of action and all your competitors are still running their race. So I know it's a little bit more challenging, but yeah, it does. It hurts a campaign's performance because you get set up the next day. You don't immediately return to the sponsored rank that you were, right? You've dropped in rank. So now your CPC is going to be higher. Your conversion is going to be lower. Your placement on average is going to be lower, right? So yeah, if you can, try and keep those campaigns 24/7 active, right? That doesn't mean that you just keep raising budget ad infinitum, because Amazon will run you into the poorhouse that way. You've got to use bid control, as you alluded to, Brandon. But if you can, I would try and keep those campaigns in budget 24/7. Unless you're going to be out of stock. That's the one. If you're listing, you know you're about to be out of stock, no reason to hurry up your spend to be out of stock. That's the only exception, right? Part 2, although I occasionally wake up to a surprising number of overnight sales, overall my campaigns tend to waste money at night. Typical scenario is going to bed with 7 to 10 orders. Looks like there's a continuation. And an ACOS 10 to 15% that cost me 60 to 90 in PPC throughout the day. Then waking up to see where no more orders, but I can't afford Ad Badger. Looks like there's another right now. So my default becomes lower budgets than I want to spend. Yeah, it is going to hurt your relationship with the algorithm. So can we go back to that part 3? Sorry, Geraldine. Thanks for being on the spot with that. No, this is the bids. We're talking about the budgets. I think we jumped around. There we go. So I would say, like, dig into this, right? Here's what I want to look. Thank you, Geraldine. So is it the same targets that are spending and just not running, or is it different targets that are, right? Like I would look at dig into where that's going, right? If it's all the same places, and it's really that dependent on time of day, they don't offer much in the way of day parting yet. I would still look to, what you can do is you can do performance-oriented budget rule compounded daily, and that can automatically drop the budget if it starts to run out. But I would dig into the individual behaviors that are running your overnight spend, and see if you can bid reduce those. If they're all the same behaviors, you just you got to get in there and if not budget reduce. I wouldn't budget reduce, because that is an equal cut of good and bad performance, right? I would look at the bid and target level, really get granular, right? Because chances are you have 1 or 2 or 3 individual behaviors, Brandon, that are driving most of your wasted spend. And if you bid reduce those one time, that will probably solve it for you. Again, have to see your individual data to be sure, but my suspicion is that you have some behaviors that are winning and some behaviors that are losing, and the losing ones just do more damage overnight. Soon you'll probably be able to day part on Amazon, though. Brandon says, phrase match. Does phrase match ever work? I very thoughtfully created a phrase match campaign with long tail keywords and really struggled to get any impressions. Yeah, I would say phrase match works all the time. Not always, right? I mean, it's like, look at these different campaign types. Like, for those of you guys who like working in your garage, right? Is a hammer a better tool than a screwdriver? Or is it just like designed to accomplish a different job, right? It's not so much better or worse, right? So I wouldn't say phrase match is better or worse than any other targeting type. It's a different job, right? So it sounds like the key word I want to focus on here, Brandon, is long tail, right? Typically long tail is you're getting increasingly specific. So if you're not getting any impressions, maybe there's 2 ways you can try it. You can either get more aggressive with the bids, right? If you look at what you're bidding compared to what the range is, if you need to get more aggressive, that's one way to get more impressions. The other is maybe chop one of those terms off the end of your phrase match, right? So that's another way to cast wider nets. Because here's the other thing, Brandon, I don't know if you're doing this. Are you checking, like on Helium or in the brand analytics tab, what those long tail keywords do in terms of search volume? If they're only getting 500 searches a month, that's why you're not getting impressions, right? They have to be relevant, yes, but they also have to have search volume. But I would say if you're looking to expand the net, right, either more aggressive with the bidding or more aggressive with the targeting, i.e., right, look, with a phrase or a broad match, each word you add is like adding another tumbler on a lock, right? So remove one of those tumblers and it's a wider net. Facebook user says, client has a low PPC budget. Campaigns go out of budget daily at 11 a.m. Can I reduce bids below cost per click? Yes, absolutely. Right. The cost per click is your average over time. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that is because what you're doing is you are making it so you're going to win fewer impressions. So that is going to slow down. That is the way, Facebook user, I would say, to keep budgets in longer. Right. Everybody thinks of just adding more budget, but really the best way to do it is to go look at the bid level, the targeting level, and optimize at the bid level, right? That allows you to keep the juice turned on, so to speak, for those bids that you do well on, and turn it down so you're not auctioning, you're not bidding on the ones that you don't do as well. I think that's exactly right. Yeah. Great question, Mohammed. DX57. Hi, if I'm running out of stock, should I decrease PPC spending or increase my prices? Thank you for your time. Potentially both. I would definitely, at the very least, do a massive decrease in PPC spending. Bid reduce. You don't need to, budget reduce as a secondary, but like bring your bids 10, 20, 30% below the minimum bid range. And then maybe even increase your prices. Yeah. You don't want to spend to hurry up to run yourself out. Hey, Hassan, how much is a good conversion rate on Amazon? Great question. So this, obviously, anytime I'm trying to give you one metric for every product, brand, go-to-market strategy, budget on Amazon, right? There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands probably at this point, sellers on Amazon. So giving you one number is tough, but I'll say generally, right, Hassan? If we're talking what the 50% or more of products on Amazon are, which is they sell from $10 to $80, right? US, at least Amazon US. Within that, I would say anything over 10% conversion rate is pretty good. Anything under 10%, you probably need help. Anything over 20%, and you're probably leaving sales on the table and you need to spend more, broaden your reach. Now, obviously, Hassan, if you're selling refrigerators for $1,200 a piece, your conversion rate is going to be lower than that, right? Because the shopping behavior is going to change, right? If I'm shopping for energy drinks, right, I'm searching for the first thing that fits what I'm looking for, and then I'm probably just going to buy it, right? It's not a big purchase, so it's not a decision I need to think that much about. I'm just looking for the most relevant thing. If it's a refrigerator, even if it's exactly what I'm looking for, I might click on your ad and write down the ASIN, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm going to go and do my research, right? I'm going to go see if I can find that exact same product cheaper somewhere else. I'm going to go see what the competitors are offering, see what those consumer reviews look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So if I have an $800 product, throw out what I just said. But under $100, I'd say over 20%, and it's almost too good, and you need to advertise in more places because you're probably leaving sales on the table. Depends on your margin, obviously, whether that's winning or losing, but for most brands. And then anything under 10%, and you've got a relevancy issue. Good question. Brandon, one is the loneliest. If campaign has only one converting search term, should I move that term to another campaign or leave alone and preserve the history? I would leave it alone. I mean, so the way to test it is to create a mirror campaign with lower bids and budgets and let it have a chance to sort of index and build over time and see if it performs nominally better. But if it's only one term and you're going to kill the spend on the remaining terms anyway, right? Typically segmenting the purposes to get more efficient. So yeah, I would just try and leave it in that campaign. And if I'm going to bid reduce everything else anyway, see what it does. But you can test. You can always test. Good question. Happy to help, Brandon. Thanks for all those good questions today. Great input. Love it.
Matt, when are you launching your energy drink brand? How can I get on this? Well, stay tuned, Jason. Had an interesting call with a energy drink potential client. So we might get snatched up this week. We'll see. We'll see if they're smart and decide to go with us or not. But if not, very soon. You know I am a caffeine addict, unrepentant caffeine addict. So fueled by clean caffeine, baby. Let's go. Good question, Jason. Hey, Ali, as Walmart is buckling up, do you see Walmart as an opportunity for sellers? I mean, sometimes. I'll say this, Ali. Does your go-to-market strategy involve getting on physical Walmart shelves in their retail stores, brick and mortar locations? If yes, Walmart probably makes great sense. If no, typically you're going to see anywhere from like 1 to 3, or even if you're doing really well, like 5% of whatever you're selling on Amazon. The apparatus, the campaign manager on Walmart, it looks like Amazon looked in like 2008. It's decades behind. I don't think they're catching up. The total market volume in terms of people shopping there is much less. It works well as a companion, right? When, hey, I'm on Walmart shelves in physical space. So then, because there are, people who go to Walmart and are physically shopping there regularly. Then there's a brand recognition. Walmart does some delivery stuff, some shopping pickup stuff. It makes it worth it. But for most sellers, this is just my personal opinion. I would say, it's not worth the headache. Don't bang your head against the wall. Just, expand to a new Amazon market before you go to Walmart, I would say. That's just me talking. All good. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for your time and attention. I hope I was able to provide value, add interest, keep it light and fun and somewhat entertaining, despite the fact we're talking about statistics and data analysis, but it's also money, right? I promise I'll have a guest to bounce things off of next week. Visit for coaching for any other questions you have about all things Amazon advertising, myamazonguy.com. You can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/myamazonguy. There it is. Thank you, Geraldine. We have so much information. If you watched every video on the My Amazon Guy YouTube channel, that alone, in my view, would qualify you as an Amazon seller expert. It's hours and hours of content. So it's a great resource. It's free. Check it out. You can book a coaching call with me, with Stephen Pope, with any of the other directors. There's the link. Thank you, Geraldine, myamazonguy.com/book a coaching call. Don't forget, this week only, Thursday, day after tomorrow, 9 a.m., 12 Pacific. That's 11/10, November 10th. Stephen Pope's live Q&A podcast. You can ask your questions directly to the Amazon guy himself. That's a nice treat. And then anything you missed, especially for those of you who have those detailed listing-oriented questions, that is Friday and Faith. Friday and Jason and Faith, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. Whew, got it all out there. Thank you guys so much. And of course, that is at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. My name is Matt Davis. I'm the director of, this is on My Amazon Guy podcast, in case you're confused. My name is Matt Davis. I'm the director of advertising here at My Amazon Guy. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We'll see you next week. Have a great Tuesday.